Welcome to Your Lot and Parcel podcast with your host, Benjamin Diaz, designed strictly for you, the consumer. You will find that this platform has your best interests at heart.
It's very much like purchasing a vehicle. What do? You test drive it. You get a feel for the interior, not to mention the exterior appeal. Similarly, because the purchasing of your first home will be perhaps the greatest investment you make, how much more important it is to have a professional inspector on your side of the table. In this episode, we are consulting a member of the International Association of Certified Home Inspectors. He's also the proprietor of Monarch Home Maintenance and Inspection Services, has an extensive background in the construction business, and also a public speaker for certain nonprofit organizations. Let's invite Sergio Barajas. Sergio, thank you for being on our show, and I really appreciate you taking time to discuss the importance of doing a home inspection for a buyer. So I'd like to ask you, Sergio, how would you how would you choose a qualified inspector, and what do you look for? Is experience, credentials? Can you speak to that?
Well, I guess, the most frequent way I get selected as a home inspector is probably a good place to start. And it's really from the agent themselves. The real estate agent, has experience working with a particular group of home inspectors, and they have a comfort level working with those inspectors. And that comfort level is usually developed over time based on previous inspections that inspector has done, and just overall engagement between the realtor and the client. As far as just picking up the phone or Googling on the internet, finding an inspector that might be able to meet your needs, you definitely want to look for someone that's certified. Some states, like California, inspectors don't have to be certified, and others they do. But irrespective, if they're have INTERNACHI certification, you know that they're at least well versed in kind of what one is looking for when they're buying / inspecting a home.
Yeah, good. So that adds a lot of weight to your experience, because I know you've been in the construction business, more than 20, 25 years, I believe, I understand. So
Right. Construction financing, inspections, just really been involved in it for quite some time.
Yeah, and plus you're a real estate, involved in the real estate industry as well. So that's great. So let me ask you, how do you prepare a home? What do you have to do to prepare a home for you to come in and do the walkthrough and do your inspection, Sergio?
Yeah, I think the most important thing, or there are a few important things, but one of the most important things is making sure, number one, all of the utilities are on.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how important that is. Obviously, if the water shut off, if the gas shut off, or the power shut off, guess what? We can't check some of the major systems. And just this past weekend, I inspected a home and the gas was shut off because they had done a termite tenting and had done termite work. Well, guess what? Can't check the heater, can't check the water heater also. So it's important to make sure all utilities are on. The other way you can really work closely with your agent and the home inspector to prepare for a good home inspection is when available, make sure that inspector has all of the disclosures that you as a buyer have received from the seller.
Okay, I think that's a good idea because it will alert you, I guess, the seller by law has to disclose whatever issues, defects, or whatever the structure and around the home may have. So that would alert you to look at it a little closer. That's a good deal. Pretty good idea.
Yeah, a little closer and a little differently too, right? If you have a disclosure, for example, that says there's been a repair, well, when you're looking at a wall finish or a ceiling finish that's a little bit different in an area, you already know why.
Yes.
And so And so you're not spending time and energy looking at it, but you're verifying that it is in good condition.
Very good. Okay. So can you give us an idea how much would a home inspection cost a buyer?
Right. And it varies area to area and property type by property type. So I would say that in the greater Los Angeles area, including kind of the San Fernando Valley, Inland Empire, Los Angeles area, you're probably looking at your average cost being about $350.
Mm-hmm.
You'll certainly have some that are higher. You'll have some that are a little bit lower, but that'll be more due to the property size and type, and or the additional services you may need.
Yeah, good. All right. So that gives us an idea. So let's say you have the appointment to go in and inspect the property itself. Can the buyer tag along with you? Is that possible?
Well, we absolutely want the buyer present. The reason we want the buyer present is, number one, having more eyes on the property at one time is helpful. 99% of the time, I'm going to see and catch all of the visual things. But even if I do see all those things visually, it's good to have someone else to say, hey, did you happen to take a look at this? It just helps them understand what we're doing as part of the inspection process, and make sure that we're catching as much as possible. The only thing that I do recommend, though, is that the client not follow the inspector.
Mm-hmm.
The client can be present, but obviously inspectors
Yes.
have a routine. I got to tell
Absolutely.
you, inspectors have a routine,
Yes.
and you don't want to upset that routine.
Yes.
The reason for that is that's when we're going to miss something.
Yeah.
So if I'm, for example, I'm an inspector that I do all of the exterior first. And if you're following me around and you go inside the house, then you're calling me inside the house to look at something, my inspection isn't going to be as uniform as it usually is. So absolutely be present, but be cognizant of the fact that you want that inspector to do what they need to do before you fully engage them.
Yeah, that's a good point, Sergio, because what you have is something you do, it's systematic, and you don't want to break that at all. So let me ask you something. Say you're driving up, you're right there at the property. So where do you begin? What do you look for?
When I'm driving up to a property, I'm looking to see where the utilities are at. I'm looking at the slope and grading of the property.
Yes.
I'm starting already to assess overall how the property is sitting on the lot and where the services are coming in.
Okay, very good. So can you get a little more specific as you go onto the property?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So what I try to tell all of my clients is the way I perform an inspection and the way most inspectors perform an inspection, it's kind of like you going to a doctor to get a physical.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at all the major systems just like they're looking at all your major systems. So around the exterior, of course, we're looking at the foundation, whether it's on grade or a raised foundation, doing a thorough inspection on the foundation, looking at the roof, seeing what kind of condition the roof is in, swinging around the property, looking at the electrical service, if electrical service is properly coming into the property, if it's wired correctly outside, to the extent possible. We're testing all visible and accessible outlets. Of course, looking at water service coming into the property, making sure that those lines are in place and not leaking. So it's really doing a detailed utility by utility, kind of critical component review of the property.
Yeah, very good. So let me ask you, do you get into the attic, that sort of thing? Yeah.
Yeah. So when we're coming into the home, we're looking at the same kind of major systems of the property, and the attic is one of them. Obviously, going into the attic allows us to look at the insulation and look at the HVAC unit that may be in the attic. But equally important, we're able to see the substructure of the roof and trying to see if we've got any issues there. So the attic is a very important component of the overall inspection, as is the foundation.
There you go. So I would assume if you go into the attic, I would assume you can go underneath where there's a concrete perimeter foundation sometimes where you can inspect the subflooring. Is that correct?
Right. So as long as we've got access to a crawl space,
Yes.
we'll get underneath and look at the foundation. When we don't have crawl space and it's a on grade foundation,
Mm-hmm.
we're still inspecting the foundation and we're looking for signs of issues. As a matter of
Yes.
fact, I had a property that I inspected close to home over here in kind of the Fullerton area, where
Yes.
I noticed a crack in the garage slab, and of course, I followed that crack and it led into one of the bedrooms, and so there you have it. We couldn't get underneath to see it, but we could
Oh,
certainly kind of identify that there was an issue and kind of follow the symptoms
yeah.
of an issue
Yeah.
and identify that we did have an issue in fact.
The repercussion of maybe an issue there. Does does the report include health hazards, that sort of thing?
Yeah, yes, to some degree. So most inspectors, for example, aren't certified to do asbestos. They're not certified to do mold. They're not certified to do lead. And so
Mhm.
earlier, when I talk about the cost of inspection, if
Yes.
you've got an inspector that's certified to do those things, and or if you want those things done, it'll increase the cost of the inspection typically, not always.
Yes.
But yes, we are looking for visible, health and safety issues, whether it's mold, whether it's asbestos. And again, our job, as I indicated earlier, is to identify that an issue exists and that there should be further assessment of that issue, not
Mhm.
necessarily to discuss how that issue should be addressed.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see where there may be other issues such as maybe you suspect radon gas, I guess would be one. Trees, that the roots are maybe getting into the some of the pipe system, I guess is another issue. And so what you're saying is, as an inspector, you will recommend other professionals.
Absolutely. And as I said, we're trying to figure out if, a lot like your doctor, when you get a physical, whether you need to see a specialist.
There you go.
Doing the
Yeah,
home inspection is trying to figure out if you need to see a specialist.
yeah.
So oftentimes it'll be, hey, we recommend you bring in an HVAC technician because you have an issue with this problem, or you've got an electrical problem, none of your outlets are grounded or half of them are grounded. So
Mm.
absolutely, we're always calling out that additional due diligence and additional service be done multiple times or numerous times. It's foundation. Some of the biggest issues that are discovered as part of this process are foundation issues. So absolutely, we're constantly recommending further due diligence.
There you go. Very good. I like your analogy. Yeah, because when you go into a doctor's office, and well, there's a regular general practitioner. Well, they will recommend a specialist. So I like that analogy. I really do,
Right.
Sergio. So we are consulting with a member of the International Association of Home Inspectors, Sergio Barajas, where he speaks to the importance of acquiring a home inspection prior to the consummation of your purchase. So, how long does that take as far as an inspection? Typically, I know every property and structure is different, but typically, and how long would the report take for me to have it in hand?
Right. On average, I would say an inspection should take about 2 hours.
2 hours. Okay. All
Right.
right.
And could be longer, could be shorter. Sometimes, for example, I'll inspect a home and it's vacant. Well, I can zip through there pretty quickly. Right. I don't have
Right.
to mess with furniture or anything.
Right.
So it depends on the condition of the home as well. As far as generating a report, 24 to 48 hours is kind of what is usually expected by the
Mhm.
realtor and by the client. Sometimes it could take longer, depending on the inspector, but I would say 48 hours is reasonable.
Yes. Very good. I I like that. And The thing too, especially if the buyer can go with you yet not get in your way, I would think that would be a good educational experience for that individual for later on, that he may if he wants to
Yeah,
invest in the property and so forth.
absolutely. We want them present because we want to discuss what we've seen and what we're going to put in the report. Oftentimes, if you're able to explain to the buyer what you saw and what's going to be in the report, you're able to, correctly address the level of concern that they should have. And so it's always good to have them there and to walk them back through the property. It's also good to do that because I'll point out where the water service comes in, where to shut it off if they have an issue in the future. Same thing with gas and electrical. So it helps them understand, kind of how they need to manage their home once they're moved in.
That's very good. Well, very important since, the buying of a home is really the highest ticket item that a fellow will experience, in his lifetime. So very important to make sure to know what you're buying, that assets, to make sure what you're buying. So let's say, Sergio, I have your report in hand. It's been generated 24 to 48 hours later. I have it in my hand. So what happens then?
So, my report is kind of capturing the condition of the property at that date and time. And what's supposed to happen and what, usually happens is that report is discussed between the realtor and the buyer.
Mhm.
And between the two of them, they decide on whether or not they're going to request that any repairs be made or that a credit be requested from the seller. It's as part of the home buying process. And so, of course, they'll put together a request for repairs or credit, and that'll be part of the negotiation process that goes back and forth between seller and buyer and their representatives.
Okay, very good. Let me ask you this: does the inspector sometimes get involved with repairing?
We try not to. To be
Okay.
honest with you, I think sometimes what happens is we don't want anyone to perceive that we've put an item in the
I
report,
see.
so to speak, because
Yeah,
we're trying to generate work.
correct.
There have been a couple of times when I've been asked to do work. I prefer not to be honest with you,
Yes,
just for that reason. The
I
other
can see
reason,
that.
quite frankly, is
Yeah.
just work is time consuming, right? That type of
Yes,
work is usually time consuming. So,
yes,
so we may, but it's not typical.
yes, exactly. Good. I can see where the conflict of interest can be construed when someone does that. So I
Yeah.
appreciate your thought on that. And so let's say the seller repairs it. Um, so what do you do as far as is there a reinspection that can be had?
Well, once the buyer and seller have kind of looked over the report and agreed to either repairs or a credit, assuming that repairs have been agreed to,
Mhm.
you should definitely get a reinspection. I can tell you, based on my experience, that I've been out on hundreds of reinspections, and there's only been two times when all of the work that was agreed to be completed had been completed. And a lot of the times that's because you as a buyer, you as the buyer agent aren't going to jump up on the roof and look to see if the repair was made, or you're not going to crawl underneath the house, or not going to have the right equipment to test electrical or heating and cooling. So absolutely, you should get a reinspection for those items that the seller has agreed to repair, and equally important, or for your own satisfaction, it's important that you have those because you want to know that you're moving in to a home that is in the condition that it should be in, as you've agreed with the seller. With respect to cost, some inspectors charge as little as $50, others will charge $150 for a reinspection. Again, it goes back to how time consuming the inspection might be, and what that policy is or practice is for that specific inspector.
Yes, very good. You know, some of those items, major items such as a roof, if it needs repair, you know, sorry, because many times the lender will need a roof certification there's an obvious issue. I've seen that many times, and so that's a good deal to have that. Let me ask you this: would it be advisable um, for the seller, okay, from the other side of the table there, the seller, to procure a home inspection before he puts it on the market? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yes and no. I would say yes, because if you procure a home inspection, you're going to be able to address 90% of the issues
Yes.
that that another inspector is going to find. The downside to that is that you won't be able to catch the 10%, which the other inspector might. That's
Mm.
kind of a thing in the business, right? Different
Yes.
inspectors have different areas of expertise,
There you go.
different things
Yes.
that they focus on. So you
Hmm.
won't necessarily catch them all. And then just remember, anytime the owner is aware of an issue, he has to disclose. So if he generates a home inspection report prior to listing the property or during the listing process, that report now has to be part of the overall disclosure.
Yes. Okay. Very good. I appreciate that. That's a good point. And so let me ask you this other question here, and that is any Alfred Hitchcock horror stories you can tell us about? I'm probably dating myself here, but let's say
No.
Stephen King.
Stephen King.
Yeah.
I get them both. Yeah, we've definitely had some horror stories. Uh, One of them that comes to mind actually is an inspection I did early on when I almost originally started doing home inspections, and it was a property in the valley part of Los Angeles, out in San Fernando Valley. Long story short, we identified that there had been a fire on the
Hmm.
property. There was charred wood up in the attic, underneath some of the insulation. Put it in the report. Of course, if you don't bother to read the report, you're upset months later after you
Yes.
purchase the home and you start doing demo and you say, why didn't I know?
Correct.
Well, we only identified it 4 or 5 times in the report, but yet at the end of the day, they try to saddle you with not providing enough emphasis. So again, I mean, that's just one example.
Sure.
Uh, I had another example where client had moved in after and complained that the water heater was not functional, and that the gas company had prohibited him from lighting it because it was dangerous.
Hmm.
Again, long story short, uh, I'm looking at pictures from my inspection and looking at the water heater when I go to visit the property to try to address the issue the gentleman's brought up, and it wasn't even the same water heater anymore.
Mm.
So, sometimes being a home inspector is a thankless job. People are always looking for someone else to, at the end of the day, pass the buck to. So it could
Yes.
definitely be challenging at times.
I can understand that. Yes. Sure appreciate that. How can our listenership reach out to you? And by the way, what area do you cover? Yeah, I know you're in California.
Yeah, I cover a pretty broad area. I would say San Fernando Valley all the way to the Inland Empire.
Hmm.
Occasionally, I'll get out to Ventura County and North San Diego County. It really depends on kind of how the work is lining up.
Sure.
But definitely willing to go further out when I'm working with specific.
Yeah.
So one other thing, and I'm sorry to kind of
Sure.
backtrack
No,
a little bit here,
no, it's okay.
that I do want to bring up is, remember, the purchase of most homes comes with a home warranty,
There you go.
and
Yeah.
and a lot of times when an issue happens that requires you to call your home warranty company, they're going to want to see a home inspection.
Hmm.
The reason for that is they want to make sure that it's not a pre-existing issue that wasn't addressed.
Yes.
And so when we're talking about the importance of home inspections and why you should or shouldn't do them, I just wanted to make sure folks were cognizant of that, and remember that it could impact how their home warranty performs after they move in.
That's a very good
Um,
point. Yeah.
so with respect to how to get a hold of me,
Yeah.
I do have a website. It's
Hmm.
called monarchinspectionservices.com. And so, that's a little website I have.
All
There
right.
is a link there to contact me via cell phone and via email. And
Okay.
so if folks want to go there, they can track me down, shoot me an email, and follow up with any questions or any other follow up they may have.
Yeah. Very good. So there it is. Can you repeat that website again, please?
Sure, it's monarchinspectionservices.com. In case folks want a phone number, it's 714-883-2855. And I guess as you mentioned earlier, I'm also a real estate agent. So
Yes.
when I'm not inspecting, I'm selling. So I'm pretty
Yes.
busy
There you
around
go.
town here.
Very good. Appreciate that. And I want to thank you for taking your time this day here to visit with us. And you're a good guy, Sergio. So you keep up the good work, and I'd like to visit with you again down near in the near future. All right.
My pleasure. Have a great day.
Hey, listeners, if you have a specific topic you want to discuss that is germane to the real estate industry, drop me a note at yourlotandparcel.com. And now, if you will excuse me.
This program has been produced by Isaac Diaz with music by Echo Foxtone. All the opinions expressed in this podcast are opinions only and should not be relied on. For more information, please visit the website yourlotandparcel.com.